Angelica works with at a school for students who are autistic. Lesson Picks has over 40,000 clip art images that you may, if you're looking for clip art and visuals, they are a phenomenal company for customizing a variety of different types of visual supports. I mean, they're really, and it's only $36 a year, and I don't work for them, but they're really, it'll save you a great deal of time. And talk to Anya about how you could use it, because there's a lot of even things that you could use for as an OT.
There's a ton of, you have the ability when you fill your tray to bring them into a whole array of pre-made activities and work, not just worksheets, but the manipulatives, everything. And you can pull them into PowerPoint and use make spinners and dice. There's a lot to it. I used it. I can't tell you how much stuff I've made off of it for this program in the past 6 months.
Yeah, as an OT,
it's really nice because it integrates. It's really nice because it integrates so well with PowerPoint, and so many people were virtual or are still seeing students both virtual and in person, and it works kind of in either setting. So it's really nice, and tons of stuff in there, and culturally sensitive. They're really adding a lot of symbols, so that's another feature that I'm appreciative of. Yeah, like you said, the cost is just right too.
Yeah, it's an annual subscription. It's only $36 a year.
And they've kept it at that for 10 years now.
Irene, what did you say?
I said they've kept it at that for 10 years, 36. I think it was, like when it first came out, I think it was 32 the first time I ever purchased it. But they're also very responsive to adding symbols if you need it, or adding templates if you need them, or tweaking their program by getting on their user group in Facebook.
And Kelly added in the chat Linda Hodgson's work, which is really excellent.
Yeah, her monthly newsletters are really helpful. And she's also somebody that I've reached out to. I had a child one of my consult students who lost their parent to COVID. And so she was one of the first people that we reached out to see what specialty kinds of supports that she had. The other company, and I'll put this link in there too, is Sandbox. I don't know if a lot of people know Sandbox Learning. You can create custom social stories. They have some that are all pre-done, and some of it is free. Like, it's one of those websites that part of it is free, and then you pay, sometimes it's like $3 or $5 to customize one of the social story books. And in the social story books, there's lots of ways that you can personalize the images of the children. So if they use an AAC device, they'll see, a picture of their character holding an AAC device throughout the social story. So I have some people that really like those little books, and their resource page is free. So I'll dig out that while people are talking. I'll go grab that link.
It's just Sandbox. Yeah, that's a great recommendation too. Thanks. Sandboxlearning.com. Oops, that didn't work. Yeah, there it is. Great. How else are people doing? Anyone? AJ Heller is incognito. Welcome, welcome. What else are people up to? How are things going? Anyone have any issues? This is a great place to kind of just share, network, and problem solve together.
Well, last week I asked a question about things to keep you busy while you're testifying online, and Lori had a lot of great suggestions. So I had my Play-Doh that I guess at one point I was involved in a little bit too much. And I was questioned at what I was looking at, why I was looking down so much.
That one was
I had to hold up.
Everybody hold up your fidget toys. I love making these sensory bottles and I give them away. It's just the best thing. So you had to testify. Tell us about that experience.
Well, I can't say too much because the case is
Yeah.
still in progress. But no, that one of the students that I've been on for now, this is the third school year. It went beyond due process and into hearing. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's stressful. It's not anything I ever want to do again.
And it's
sorry, Kelly.
online too.
In our field that have become kind of like professional witnesses. I will never be one of those.
Yeah, this is not my favorite thing either. I've unfortunately been in the situation where I've had to do it a few times, and it's just the pits.
Yeah.
It really, I think this is why I've chosen education and not law.
Yeah, I really appreciate the people on the team that do it full time, but it's, yeah.
Oh, it's Sarah. Joining while she's driving between schools. So she's just listening. Oh, well, you can still share. We love to hear your voice. So
I have a question.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. So I really work hard on finding tools that the students can have after they leave school, so that they're very low cost or no cost. So for our UDL, we moved to Help-A-Bird because it has a robust free stuff, and kids, and if they want to buy it afterwards, it's inexpensive. But I'm trying to find, they're struggling with how it does reading back text to speech. So I was looking for other options for text to speech that were similarly financially accessible. Because I know we can go to co-writer, and I love co-writer, but if once a student leaves us, they can't really afford to have co-writer.
Right.
And I was looking at Microsoft Immersive Reader with Microsoft Office, and wondered if anyone has had any success using that, and if there were other ideas people had.
So Irene, are you talking about once they graduate from high school and transition into the real world?
Yes, or
After school?
If it's after school and they're still in our district, they get whatever we have. They still have access to everything. But if they move to a different district, that district may have nothing or something. Or if they leave school and become homeschooled, they won't necessarily have anything. And if after they leave transition, if they don't go to certain types of jobs, they may not have what they want and need. So I just have this belief that things need to be affordable. I can access all kinds of things for free, and I think that my students need that same ability. It shouldn't cost them more because they need access.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the companies do have family pricing.
Okay.
So, and if they didn't have it before COVID, they certainly put those kind of pricing differences. And so sometimes it's not always like advertised right on their website, but I've had families that went into homeschooling and stayed in homeschooling that weren't funded by this. Like I have some kids that are in homeschool that the school district, it's a part of their agreement, and the school still pays for whatever the students need. But I also have a cousin whose son has some learning disabilities, and they're completely off the grid in Alaska, in some glacier community. And they were able to get a family price on Snap and Read.
And
I don't remember how much it was.
The other thing is you always want to show them what are the devices that they're using and show them the accessibility tools built into the tools. Like with their phones have text-to-speech built into them. And, depending on which device they're using, or their iPad or their Chromebook or whatever. I know my 31-year-old dyslexic son his big go-to is Speechify, which he uses the free version of it. And Speechify is not typically one I recommend, but he swears by Speechify. It was developed by Cliff Weinrob, whatever, who's a brilliant dyslexic 20-something-year-old kid who graduated from Brown University and severely dyslexic. So I mean, that's another thing. There really are a lot, Irene. It's all about, like Kelly brought up too, about options. It's all about showing kids what's possible and then helping them to develop their own tool belt that'll work. You know, depending on what it is they have to read. If it's a single word in isolation, is it a paragraph? Is it a whole article?
It's for writing.
Oh, for output?
Writing.
Yeah.
For output.
Read back to the writing.
You mentioned about immersive reader. I've got a school system that's kind of like their go-to. And then I'm the one that hears from the teachers, like, I can't open this, I can't do this. So I know there's, you know, things that I think on the writing side, it might be more helpful than on the reading side, because I've had teachers run into all kinds of trouble using it.
The other, I think immersive reader is better for reading, because if you want to edit your work, you have to take it out of the immersive reader window to edit your work. So why not use, I'm sorry, go ahead, Irene.
This weekend I was reading that they've changed that you can edit an immersive reader on Microsoft. I mean, this is how I spend my weekends. I was looking at, you know, different tools, trying to find something that will also make the teachers happy, because they had such great tools before. I mean, I love co-writer and I love Snap and Read. Some of it is teachers' willingness to learn something new.
Oh, if that is true, that you can now edit can you edit an immersive reader? Let's just say it lets you change.
I thought I read that this weekend, but you know, I've been pretty sick, so you know, I feel less of it. I'll find it.
Yeah, share it in the other thing for written output, I think, you know, for Google Docs combined with the free version of Read and Write for Google, because you never lose the ability to listen to the text read back to you with the free version of Read and Write for Google.
Okay.
From Text
I have
Help.
to get it approved by a district, but
that is completely compliant, COPA compliant.
Yeah, we use the Text Help products, and we have Read and Write, and there's the PDF reader. Oh gosh, they changed the name of it. Orbit Doc. And
I wanted to use Natural Reader, and it has to go through this process in our district. Because Natural Reader works nicely.
Yeah, we are very strict on the FERPA COPA compliant and the student data privacy in our division, and any resource like that has to go through a lengthy process to be approved. And we have a district-wide subscription for Read and Write and the related products. We also just got Equasio for math. We're having a little bit of trouble for some issues. One way that it's a tech kind of thing. So the Chrome version for Read and Write is not working for our students, but I think it's related to how they built the image that allow our high school students to use YouTube. So whatever they built, it's one or the other. So there's like a different pathway. And anyway, so we're going through some technical hoops on that. But our students, we selected that one too, because our junior college, like our community college, and then our local university also uses Read and Write. So our students that are going to Nova and George Mason University after they graduate from us, then they have the tools that are kind of other universities in the area are using. So that was another decision for why we picked that one.
You mentioned something called Orbit.
The Orbit, no, so it's part of the Text Help suite.
Oh, Text Help, okay.
Yeah, so.
And they're actually doing, I just saw it, I can't remember, it just came across my social media or my email. They're doing a professional development about making PDFs accessible using Orbit tomorrow on the 26th at 3:30, and I don't even remember if that's what time, Eastern, Pacific, I don't even remember. So that, Irene, might be something that would help you.
Yeah,
Because-
no, I'll look into that too.
Yeah, and then Screenshot Reader is the other one that's kind of like in the suite of Read and Write. If for the
Yeah.
paid subscription, I don't think it comes
No, it's not.
on the free version. Yeah.
We kind of have I want to say a double issue of not only the software has to meet all the compliances. We are a Chrome district and we're only allowed to use
Chrome
approved
extensions.
Google extensions
Mm-hmm.
that have been approved by our system. And our system doesn't like to have things that duplicate something else. So I have to be able to to say, okay, this is why yes, I know we have this and this does similar things, but this does this little unique twist that I need to get for the student.
Yeah. So in the Chrome version for Read and Write, they have a simplify feature, and they also have the highlighting vocabulary features, which some of the other software does not have.
Okay.
The simplify is really nice. So it'll take a document and reduce it in length and complexity using some sort of algorithm that does that. Our students really like that. Our L students are using that. Our students who are reading below grade level but are not in special education or don't have an IP are using that. There's several different groups that are using this because it's available through our tiered system of support.
Okay.
Irene,
I will look at that. We get that through HelperBird too. There's a ton in HelperBird. And there's a ton in the HelperBird free version. He just needs to work on making it a little more slick.
well, if they've already approved HelperBird, have they already approved HelperBird?
Yeah, maybe you can just use that.
And yeah,
The teacher is resistant
well,
because she specifically wants that when the student hits a punctuation, it will immediately read back the sentence that they just wrote.
okay, so who is this for? The teacher or for the student?
It's for the student, and she is saying this is what the student needs. She has 2 students. She says this is what they need. And I get, I've told you guys the story of me just being here by me. I have somebody else who helps me now 1 day a week. And sometimes it's just finding what's going to work.
So what are they doing? And Irene, I would always ask, so what is happening instead? Since you don't have anything in place, what is happening instead? What's the teacher doing instead?
Right now, I believe she's reading to the student.
Okay. So that's
you could compare and contrast independence level and
yeah, do a comparison. Okay, let's say you're not available, Miss Teacher. What can we do to help support and promote your students' independence and empowerment? And so it sounds like more what she's looking for. I have a hard
he's
time.
in high school, right? Or he's post-secondary because he's
elementary.
Oh, he's elementary.
Oh, all right. You've got plenty of time.
Right.
But still, you really want to promote the learners' independence and empowerment.
I am so about that.
Yeah.
Yes, I completely agree. It's just a matter of
do it. Do the data. Do a baseline comparison. What does it look like with her sitting next to him? What are the student, and what does it look like with him being independent, working on it independently once he's been shown how to use the technology, and then evaluate the outcomes. Which way is the student more successful, more independent, more empowered? What does the student think? Because the other thing too is we always, teachers oftentimes only look at that 1 year instead of looking long-term. She's promoting dependence, and eventually we see that at middle school and high school is developing into learned helplessness. So we want to break the cycle.
And I also think they need to be flexible because if they go to someplace else, it's going to be a different thing. So we might as well be teaching them. It just fluffs our dendrites,
Yeah.
Just helps us grow.
Great advice, Karen.
Well, Lauren,
Great advice
Yeah, I
about
wrote that
building
down.
independence, because like you said, then they're just
Everything.
so dependent and we lose that. But in elementary, we have an open window to change that. And then the
Right.
student can build their own self-advocacy and say, I know what to do, I can do this, and you know.
I agree. I mean, I think that's true. I just have
And
not found a successful way to kind of promote that theory.
well, let's talk, maybe you can talk to her from the perspective of dependence and independence and see what they think.
I'm curious what the student would say if you had the student's voice amplified, like, I can do this, I just need access to this tool, or, you know, I wonder if they could say that in their own voice, and maybe the teacher would, with your support of the student, maybe the teacher would be more willing to listen to the student's voice. That it's not you against the teacher in this sort of conflict of.
And I should say there's another complication in that this is, remember I said there's somebody who's helping me 1 day a week? The person who's helping me is leading this particular referral. So I'm trying to coach her through this referral that she's doing. And I think this is great advice, and I'm gonna pass that along. I wish she was here today, but she's out there. Otherwise I'd tell her, get on right now.
Sometimes rating scales, like for all these things that people are talking about, like what level of independence, and find like, a 5-point scale,
Yeah.
those kinds of things that they make people think about issues they haven't thought about before. I often have teachers that are reading to their kids because it's the easy, fast thing to do, right? It's not that they're not thinking long-term,
Right.
especially not in elementary school.
Right.
So
And
it's
especially
5 questions or so on a scale. I wouldn't put them any more than that, because then people are like, I can't do this.
I kind of remember the leadership scale we talked about a few weeks back, that were like, if this is what's happening in the team, then this is what's missing.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if we could set these pieces that Karen was just talking about in kind of that same pattern. Like, if this is the resistance you're getting, then here's the area that the teacher needs more education on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh.
I love that. So cognitive coaching, they call them the states of mind. I don't know if you guys have done cognitive, you women, sorry, I'm working on my terms. It's just it's a northerner thing that I say you guys, and I don't mean any offense. I'm working on changing that. You friends might have known that they talk about like flexibility, interdependence, craftsmanship, self-efficacy. So looking at sort of what are the areas that the person may need some support in, so that they are ready to learn and change. So I like that, to do a little rating scale on each of those. That would be really nice.
Erin Sheldon did a nice presentation for Oregon's Echo Voices last week on the barriers. And of course, hers was all related to augmentative and alternative communication. But Scott Murphilius and I have used those Buchelman and Miranda barriers across AT, looking at what's holding back from these things happening. Is it policy, is it knowledge? Is it practice barriers? And so she went through those, and they make those webinars, they post those so that you can watch them again. But she did a really nice job, and then had some new kinds of graphics as to looking at why this certain barrier is happening as it relates to independence and access. It was a good perspective on it.
Lori, thanks for checking into Immersive Reader. But
yeah,
that would be huge.
I'm gonna keep looking for it.
Yeah.
I, like I said, I was 6, and maybe I misread, but I thought I saw that because I tried to play with it. And then my
Yeah,
computer
Immersive
died.
Reader is, I mean, I love how it works with so many other products.
Yeah, I
on-
found some really cool information about it that I didn't know, but it's like I didn't find the editing within.
Yeah. Yeah,
So-
Immersive Reader works within Wakelet, and I
Mhm.
don't, this is a nice tip. We had, a year ago, I had a student from Israel, and so Hebrew was his primary language, and he was in 4th grade. He had just moved here, and he needed to have the articles translated. So I suggested to the teacher, put the article, put the information in a Wakelet, and then use Immersive Reader with the translation tools, and then it can be read back to him as well. And it worked really nicely. So,
Oh,
I love
good
it.
tip.
Yeah,
My daughter's teaching English in Israel right now, so I'm going to have to tell her to and reverse that.
yeah. It's really, it's a great tool. I mean, yeah, because people might speak other languages as well. So, and it's a way that it just, you're compiling all the information in one place. And so it's easier. It's almost like, your own bookshelf. So it's great. Hey, Lori, welcome. We got an informal session today because Mike bailed on us.
I believe he's hurt.
Oh, really? You think he's home? I mean, something happened?
Yeah, now I have to
Yeah.
go back and look at the email. I think something happened to his back.
Mhm.
Oh, no.
Yeah, he was moving boxes and he hurt his back.
Oh, poor Mike.
Yeah,
That's awful.
he would have been here if he could.
Yeah. All right, I take it back. Mike, feel better. Oh, Sarah, you made it to your school.
I did. Just came inside, heated up my lunch.
Yeah, now you're getting lunch. So how else other, so it seem, how Mike always has his note card to fall back on? I don't have it.
I have a curiosity. I wonder if anybody has read I'm going to say what correctly it is, the Resna position paper on the capacity building role of an assistive technology specialist in pre-K to 12 educational settings. They have, Dan Cochran's been putting out, they have an open call for people to review it. And I think they just keep pushing the date forward because I don't think they're getting a lot of people that are kind of in our forum. And so I'm just interested if anybody's read through it. I haven't read it probably since it was first developed and I gave my first round of feedback.
I have not seen it. Is there a way to see it? To find
Oh,
it?
there is.
Oh, I just pulled it up. I didn't even know it existed.
Yes,
What is that? What is the paper again?
so it's the Resna position paper on the capacity building role of an assistive technology specialist in pre-K to 12 educational settings. If you go to Resna's website, so just resna.org, I believe it is. Yeah,
Yeah, here
resna.org.
it is. I think.
And then I think it's right up on the main page, the link to the position paper. And you don't have to be a member of Resna
No.
to give
Lori-
feedback on it, which is
Lori
good
put
because
the
there's
link.
not a lot of K-12 members in Resna.
So,
Certainly not.
Hmm.
so I
So
haven't. Yeah,
sorry.
Lori, go ahead.
I belong to a regional assistive technology team, and we have our regional meeting on Friday. So I will bring this up maybe perhaps as our team, we have some work time. We can each review it. We've went through the practices with Denise DeCoste with her capacity building. It's been a handful of years ago that as a team, we went through a year-long training with her. So I'll be curious to see those that went through the training and are using her practices, if they can review this. I think it would be great.
Yeah, I think it would be good because, like I said, I don't think they've gotten a lot of people to review it. Well, at least last school year, I haven't seen it this school year. They had a monthly meeting on the second Monday night, I think it was. And there were only ever like 6 to 8 people. And everybody has more the kind of the rehab therapy flair. And there's not a lot of, and they're all, you know, that group, they're connected to K-12, but it's never been a real stronghold in Resna, the K-12 educational perspective. So I think the more people we can get to give Dan and his team feedback, all the better.
But my question always is, why should we retrofit into a rehab and engineering organization that has a different perspective? I know, Kelly, are you an ATP?
I am not.
I am not
On
also.
purpose.
I am not on purpose also. It is a deliberate decision to not be an ATP. And fortunately, I don't need to be. And I guess that there are some states that are adding that requirement in, but it makes no sense to me. So when you say
It's required for my job.
Yeah,
It's
there's
required
people
for
that
my
have it
job.
required for their position in their school system.
which is so surprising that it would be required for an education.
Oh, no, I'm not. I'm over 21 though. Remember that.
That's, yeah, okay. See, that's different. But for K through 12, pre-K through 12, it's very surprising that it would be, yeah.
But I
Lori,
have
that's-
heard of that. But here in Wisconsin, they are putting together an AT certificate. That's a
Mhm.
statewide certificate,
Mhm.
so that people can do that and have that as a part of their credentials. You know, Karen, I'm right with you, but I've stayed a member of Resna to keep an eye on this because I know there's a buco number of people that take that test. We end up teaching those folks in AT boot camp. So we want to make sure in boot camp that we've got the content that's going to help people that need to take that test for their job. And we mostly end up with adult service folks, human resources, people that are going independent that are in that class. But we do end up with educators because they, you know, everybody kind of finds out about assistive technology through one stream or another. And sometimes the stream that they find it through is the Resna stream.
And it does look different. Pre-K through 12, the education perspective on assistive technology is very different from the adult, you know, what it looks like, especially, you know, seating and positioning, adult life changes. It's a, you know, the rehab components of it are quite different from looking at it from an educational perspective. And yeah, so it sounds like Kelly, we have similar feelings. I know Mike has,
Since its inception without any educators on the board. Now
Right.
they've changed that around, and I guess the last evolution of the test had people that were K-12 that were a part of the people that were revising the test.
and I think Mike, it's too bad Mike isn't here because he is an
Yeah.
ATP, but he is also, he comes from an engineering background as well. And sorry,
But I
Lori.
don't have either. And there are two different tests. There's a test for OTs and PTs, and there's a test for those of us who are not. And I am on the not. So there was a lot of different things on my test than
Yeah.
positioning, and although those are important and they were touched upon, yes.
Yeah.
So this is
Yeah.
really interesting because I'm so glad that we're having this discussion because a colleague and myself, she's in OT, have been having this discussion. And as we look for more people to join our team and expand our team, what are some of the things that we want to put out there in the job description of what people might have as their background? And one of the ideas on the table was, could we look for somebody who's an ATP? And hearing the discussion about that and in the schools, I had this general feeling, but it's good to know this because we knew somebody that was on the committee that's an educator. What was her name? Fiona Busey. she's an educator in Richmond and an OT by training, and she was on the board to kind of see if there could be more work done to be inclusive to educators and sort of highlight a different perspective.
I think it's okay to ask if they have it, but not to make that a requirement. You know, I would put that across, what certifications or continuing education have you received specific to assistive technology? And then that way it would be fully inclusive of people that have taken courses at university and people, that might have taken a certificate program somewhere that's not the same as a credential. And I think there's that mix between what's a credential and what's a certification, what's just continuing ed. So I think somewhere putting that in your information that you get from your applicants is important to know, but it shouldn't be the ATP thing. My perspective is shouldn't be a requirement. And I'm like Karen, it's never stopped me from getting a job that I don't have it.
Right. And if they answer yes, it means they've got 8 years, at least on my side of I'm not sure about the OT side, but on the my side of how I came into it, I had to have 8 years of experience before I can even apply. Now they are changing that. There is a fast track system for 1.5 years, and then you got a mentor. So.
Okay. And Lori, tell me, could you remind me your background?
Assistive technology specialist.
Okay.
I educator by my bachelor's is in education, and then my master's in assistive technology and AAC. Thank you, Karen.
Okay.
I went to Simmons.
Yeah. Lori was one of the students at Simmons, which is no longer in existence, unfortunately.
Sadly. And there's nothing replacing it of that quality either.
Yeah.
So.
It was a Simmons AT master's program, and it from an education perspective, it was through the Department of Ed at Simmons. It was really excellent through Mads Police. But yeah, I would echo what Kelly said. But the thing is, the whole, what's their passion? Is their passion combining education and independence? Because technology is the way to do that. It's more, Lauren, good luck. Because, it is a certain set of skills, but it's also, many of us started from scratch because there wasn't anything.
Yeah.
And I know when I went into the schools back in 1989 as an OT, and I quickly learned education. I mean, as an OT, we're all about independence, and schools made kids dependent on adults. So the first things that I noticed, the first tool I saw was Co-Writer, and then IntelliTools, and it was like kids got engaged, they were empowered. And I'm like, this is amazing. I've got to find out more. I've got to get a master's in AT. And so it's that drive. And that, I mean, Kelly's been doing it the longest of everyone here, right, Kelly? But
1983, before some of you were born.
Kelly is great because she's got the history there, but we all have our own stories to tell. And one of the things that concerns me about Resna is always the idea that they can retrofit it into an organization that doesn't have education and learning and student voice in mind. That's so.
And quite frankly, there are certain members of Resna who have the medical perspective of assistive technology and serving at it that way, and think that we in education do it wrong. So it's, and I confronted that when I tried to do a doctoral program and hit it straight on, and it didn't help. My perspective did not help me get through. But that's also
interesting that you say that, because as I was doing my PhD work, the initial path of my PhD was different in AAC, and I ended up doing my PhD in special ed and special ed leadership after being a master's level SLP, and looking at that because of the unique team I could put together at George Mason University, and also because of funding.
Yeah.
So I ended up kind of crossing over to get a fuller picture of, in the educational setting, what does this look like and how do we lead students with autism? Because they had a nice autism focus there, a great look at and ability to work with low incidence disabilities and to do single subject research and case research design. So I was able to piece together a really nice team. So everybody always says, oh, are you sad you didn't do your PhD in speech? But when I was looking and the mentorship and the availability of what was sort of happening, I'm really kind of glad that things turned out the way that they did, just because the path I would have taken would have been so different. And I think I would have had a much more narrow perspective on things, but to really study leadership models and special education in the schools and what that looked like was just much more eye-opening. And
Yeah.
And also the university that I was at, George Mason University is very entrepreneurial and innovative, and going and teaching in higher ed after that at a university that was much more traditional was a really hard shift. And I left and ended up coming back to the schools for that reason, because it wasn't a good fit for what I was looking for. And that stuff makes a big difference. And so I think it's important to talk about them, especially in meetings like this, because sometimes it looks good on paper and it's not really, like, you don't know. And if you don't talk to anybody that's part of the organization, or what the other perspective might be.
Well, and I think that perspective piece that you bring up is so important. I in my position, I get a chance to meet a lot of assistive technology teams across the country and internationally. And there is a different feel in K-12 teams when they have somebody who has a teacher background on their team, or if it's an all therapist team. I mean, so many, our original roles as we come to AT always play a lens in how we look at things. Yeah. And it's a different feeling and a different way that I think all SLP, OT, AT teams go after making changes in classrooms. Then when you actually have somebody that worked, that not just that you didn't work in a classroom as an SLP or a teacher or an OT, but that you ran that classroom, like you were the teacher with the teacher perspective. And so one of the things when I'm looking at teams, and I've been brought in on purpose because they didn't have an educator on their assistive technology team. And how can we make the teachers do this? Well, first of all, get rid of the word make. And then we'll look at the perspective of how do we change the teacher's experience. But sometimes you need to have that lens of somebody that was in the classroom that's a part of your, whole team, not somebody that's just brought in ancillary with it. But it's a different feel.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah. Jennifer, you got to join us. Is there any issues, Lori, AJ, Sarah?
I actually have a really quick question for everybody. What is your favorite scanning pen that you have used?
Favorite scanning pen?
Like the C pen, I don't know. That's the only one we really considered. So I'm just looking to see if there's others that we should be considering.
There's a lot of thoughts about reading pens.
Yep.
And I've used the C pen and it does work well. Some people think that, well, I have had a student that it was the solution for that student, a high school junior last year, and we had him trial it, and he could decode, he could read grade level content, but he'd come to some specific multisyllabic words in the ELA fiction that was assigned, and he loved being able to just scan the pen over that single word and hear it. And the C pen worked perfectly for him, and it was the recommendation. Now, again, he was, now he's a senior in high school. They're easily lost, and they're a significant amount of money. But for some students, that is the technology that helps them to comprehend and decode independently. So
Yeah, and we're just looking, we've got some money, so we're just looking to add a few to our toolbox of options that we can use. So we were just trying to figure out which one would be the best one to purchase.
The company, Jack Churchill from that company, is so responsive. He loves, he was all about helping students.
And I've looked at them at, I don't know, ATIA, Closing the Gap. I mean, we just haven't purchased any. So any other options, or do you feel like the C-Pen is usually just the go-to? I mean, that's the one I know about.
It's got the earbud connection.
Yeah.
I mean, if other people have other experiences, and they keep improving the quality of the product. They're completely invested in it.
Some of the others don't even exist anymore.
Yeah.
Okay.
I did see about an expensive option that was just mentioned in Quiet last week or so, which was like $1,100. And I actually responded to it in the Quiet listserv. And one of the complaints about it was it didn't have a headset connection, an earbud connection. And this one, I think it was $250, or it might have even just gone up to $275. I think I saw that too. And so try it out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That's good feedback. I won't waste my time searching for 10 million others that may or may not exist.
Go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, some of the companies that made handheld solutions went to take a picture with your phone and then we'll read it from your phone. And so you see some of those options that have replaced and another handheld tool in your backpack, and just use the one that everybody's got, which was their phone.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I just got the Scan Maker Air to see how it performs, if it's better or worse. I haven't tried it yet though.
It's for very specific situations. I mean, because there are, like Kelly just mentioned, the Microsoft Lens and Seeing AI, which do instant conversion, OCR and text to speech. But if you just need, actually they say too, what Jack has said from the C-Pen company is, if you've got a paper-based test, then this is a solution. But again, why are we doing anything on paper anymore? But if that's the way it has to be. And again, for a situation like what my student found, because there are instant scanning and text to speech options. But that wouldn't have worked for this kid. He wanted to read from the book, and the scanning pen was perfect for him.
My 6th grader loves to read, and she has a Kindle, and she likes her paper-based books. There are just kids that have, and people that have that strong preference for that paper-based book. I worked with a family where the student was not a strong reader, but they were doing shared reading. He was younger, maybe upper elementary school, and mom saw this as a solution for him to be able to read out loud with his peers. And so they were doing partner reading, and it was more about the participation than the decoding skills. She just wanted him to be included. And, I thought, well, if that's your goal, and the school district supported it. So
it does take some practice, and it does require different skills in terms of being able, the visual tracking, the fine motor control. So and highly motivated. And again, I always, when I show students different options, I ask them on a Likert scale to rate, where do they feel that particular option falls for them.
And no behavioral throwing issues.
Are they like
it seems obvious. But I ran into a team last week that recommended it for a high school student who's reading, fairly below grade level, who's reading at a kindergarten level, because his teacher said, well, we are all paper-based. And I said, well, what did you do during virtual? Well, during virtual, we were doing electronic. And then back to kind of like to come full circle to where we started today, I asked the question, well, what about his independence? But to me, independence isn't something also that that's going to become a projectile across the classroom. So, there are other things that he was reading with during virtual school that were removed when they got back to face-to-face school this year because of teacher preference, not because of student need. And then you ask that question about, well, what's going to make him more independent when he's out of high school? You know, when he wants to do, when leisure reading needs to be a factor for him. And so it's kind of, it's interesting that all of the things we've talked about today were wrapped up in that person showing me, well, when they had us use this reading pen, I'm like, what? I don't know where the feature match list was on there.
Yeah. So hopefully that helped, Jennifer. On that note, we can sign off unless there's anything else. Great to have a low-key conversation with everybody. See you all. Thanks, Naomi.